This video contains full spoilers for both Spider-Verse films, Star Wars, and Spider-Man No Way Home. Watch at your own risk. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the animated blockbuster of the summer. Like its predecessor, Across the Spider-Verse dazzles with its animation style and storytelling. As the sequel to my favorite movie of all time, it not only delivered, but exceeded my expectations. But why am I comparing it to The Empire Strikes Back? At face value, comparing an animated superhero movie from 2023 to a space opera from the 80s may seem like a stretch, but from the moment I exited the theater, I was convinced that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is this generation's Empire Strikes Back. Here's why. Despite the obvious differences between the two films, there are some clear comparisons. Both movies are the second installment in a trilogy, and they both leave off on a cliffhanger ending. Both films also have a major twist in the final act of the story. But the comparisons go much deeper. When the original Star Wars came out, George Lucas was convinced it would be a failure. The film struggled so much in production that it's more or less a miracle it even came out. Thus, the making of the sequel, Empire Strikes Back, was far from a guarantee, with George Lucas being forced to take a, quote, very tough deal to get the film made. Not to mention, Star Wars as a concept was experimental, so a sequel being made was far from a guarantee. Now, a movie backed by Marvel and made by Sony Pictures Animation had a much better chance to succeed than Star Wars, but it doesn't mean that Into the Spider-Verse wasn't experimental or guaranteed to spawn a sequel. Spider-Verse heavily deviated from modern-day animation and went for a more comic book come-to-life aesthetic. The film also introduced many new Spider-People to non-comic readers, most notably Miles Morales. The character of Miles was only introduced in the comics in 2011, giving him very little history with readers. That lack of history leads to little or no pre-existing connection between the characters and fans, making a movie centered around this new character a harder sell. Much like Star Wars, the whole franchise of Spider-Verse broke new ground and took an experimental project and turned it into a hit. Circling back to the movies in question, both focus on a protagonist who is honing and developing powers which they first used in the previous film. Both Luke and Miles as mentors from the first film return as well to surprise the hero. Both heroes are introduced to much stronger and wiser people who have the same powers as them. Both warn that the hero's choice to save specific people will have dire consequences, and both heroes ignore this warning. But that's enough of the minor similarities. Two movies who share a few basic elements of their plot isn't anything special. Instead, I want to focus on how Across the Spider-Verse uses the same devices as The Empire Strikes Back to create an impactful third act. The final act of The Empire Strikes Back contains arguably the biggest twist in film history. That C-3PO is alive, of course. No, the biggest twist and most misquoted line in movie history comes when Darth Vader reveals to Luke he is his father. This reveal single-handedly changed the trajectory of the trilogy. Instead of a war between the Empire and Rebellion, it became a battle of light versus dark between a father and son. Yoda had set up the battle between light and dark earlier in the film, however, this scene made it clear that this would be the central theme of the entire trilogy. The same applies to Across the Spider-Verse with its twists. The first twist is that Miles was transported to the wrong dimension and he is now stranded on Earth 42, with the canon event of his dad's death approaching. But if that wasn't bad enough, we're quickly introduced to Earth 42's Prowler, who reveals himself to be that universe's Miles Morales. Prowler Miles has no intentions on helping his Spider-Bitten counterpart, instead seeming more interested in killing our Miles. We know thanks to a blink and you'll miss it moment at the beginning of the film that Prowler Miles was supposed to be bitten by the spider that bit our Miles, meaning Earth 42 Miles was destined to become Spider-Man instead of the Prowler. Was 1610 Miles destined to become the Prowler? This reveal changes the trajectory of the Spider-Verse trilogy from a coming-of-age superhero trilogy to one of destiny. Canon events are a spider's destiny, but 1610 Miles had his destiny changed when he was bitten by the spider, breaking the canon in the process. Part of that canon breaking was Prowler Miles not being bitten by the spider, changing his destiny as well. By revealing Prowler Miles, the central theme of the trilogy is fully revealed to be destiny. Miles is trying to further change destiny, while Miguel is trying to force every spider's destiny onto them. Both Empire and Across the Spider-Verse hint at their trilogy's main theme throughout the film, but it's not until the big twist is it fully revealed. By using the twist to announce the theme, both films are able to contextualize their endings in regard to the entire trilogy. When the credits roll at the end of Empire Strikes Back, there is a clear path forward for the conclusion of the trilogy. Han is frozen in carbonite and needs to be rescued. Luke will have to confront Vader again, deciding on if he will join him or stay on the light side. The war will reach a turning point, and by the end of Empire, the rebels have their backs against the wall. In that battle of light versus dark, the dark is winning, and it isn't particularly close. The end of Empire marks a low point for the heroes in the trilogy, with a clear path forward of what they'll need to overcome. When the credits roll at the end of Across the Spider-Verse, we hear a banger of a song. Am I Dreaming is such a good song, and if you didn't listen to it during the credits, you missed out big time. In fact, both the Into the Spider-Verse album and the Across the Spider-Verse album are incredible. Go listen to them right now if you haven't. Not sponsored. Anyways, when the credits roll at the end of Across the Spider-Verse, there is a clear path forward for the conclusion of the trilogy. Miles is stranded on Earth-42 in the custody of the Prowler and his Earth-42 Uncle Aaron. Miles will have to confront the Spot again and attempt to save his dad's life without destroying the universe. Finally, both Miguel's and Gwen's teams are hunting for Miles, with neither of them knowing where he is. This is a low point in the trilogy for the heroes. Miles is MIA with his dad's death on the horizon. The Spot is stronger than ever with no one to defend Earth 1610, and Miles is still on the run from Miguel. Miles is fighting to further change destiny, but at this point, the changes he's already made have only made the battle tougher. The end of Across the Spider-Verse marks a low point for the heroes in the trilogy, with a clear path forward of what they'll need to overcome. Both Empire and Across the Spider-Verse leave the characters at their lowest point, but each ending has an impact beyond the screen. Both movies leave the audience with a major question regarding the twist that will be crucial to the story moving forward. With today's knowledge of the prequels and Return of the Jedi, we know Darth Vader was telling the truth, that he was Luke's father. But before Jedi came out, audiences were left questioning if Vader was lying. Skepticism was so prevalent that George Lucas had to write into Jedi a scene where Yoda confirms Vader's claim just so audiences would finally believe it. The important note here is audiences were left with a major question with massive lore implications. They had to question the validity of Vader's claim. For what it's worth, Luke believes Vader. He questions Obi-Wan as to why he never told him about it, and refers to Vader as father when the two talk telepathically.
Luke.
Father.
Son, come with me.
Why didn't you tell me?
Luke has also been shown to have a strong connection with Vader after Luke saw his own face under the Sith Lord's mask in the cave on Dagobah. But there's plenty of reasons to believe he was lying. Vader had every reason to lie to Luke as he was trying to get the young Jedi to turn to the dark side. Yoda was concerned about Luke's emotions, and Vader tries to take advantage of said emotions. Also, Darth Vader is a bad guy who already lied to Lando, so why should he be believed when talking to Luke? Obi-Wan even said that Luke's dad was killed by Vader, so how could he be Vader? All of this to say the answer to, did Darth Vader lie to Luke, was as unclear as the waters on Dagobah. And Across the Spider-Verse, the question we're left with is if Miguel is correct. Would Miles saving his dad break the canon and destroy the universe? Much like with Vader, there are plenty of reasons to believe Miguel is correct. He straight up says that it happened in the dimension he found where he has a family, with Peter B, a character we trust, confirming the story. We also see Mumbattan start to fall apart right after Miles broke the canon by saving Inspector Singh. But is that evidence irrefutable? The Spot did create a lot of chaos in the city that ended with the Collider going off and the Alchemex building falling down. Could that have been the cause of the giant hole in the city?
That wasn't me. That was the Spot.
It's what happens when you break the canon.
And although we trust Peter B, he was seen tricking Miles during the chase sequence in New York after he lied to Miles about why he never came to visit, removing some credibility from the veteran Spider-Man. There is also evidence that straight up contradicts Miguel's claim that breaking the canon would destroy the universe. Miguel admits that Miles already broke the canon, as Miles is the original anomaly because he was bitten by the Earth-42 spider. Not only did Miles' spider bite break the canon in his own universe by causing the death of 1610 Peter Parker, but it caused the first and most important canon event on Earth-42 to not happen. There is no Spider-Man of that universe. Other pieces of evidence against Miguel include Captain Stacy of Gwen's universe deciding to quit as police captain. This breaks a canon event in Gwen's universe, the same event Miles is trying to break in his own universe. Finally, and this one might be a stretch, but in Spider-Man No Way Home, a movie that is canon in the Spider-Verse, the Spider-Men arguably break the canon by curing the villains before sending them back to their universe. Now, it's arguable the villains dying weren't canon events, but it's still worth mentioning. The point stands that there are multiple instances where the canon is broken without the universe breaking down. But at the same time, there are instances we see in the film and hear about where exactly what Miguel predicts would happen comes to pass. There is no clear answer to the question, is Miguel correct? Would Miles saving his dad and breaking the canon destroy the universe? Both Empire Strikes Back and Across the Spider-Verse leave viewers with a lore-changing, trilogy-defining, unclear question. Is Vader Luke's father, and would Miles saving his dad destroy the universe? Both questions the audience are left with concern a father and their son trying to save them. We know Luke ends up saving his father, bringing Anakin back to the light side. We'll have to wait for Beyond the Spider-Verse to see if Miles is successful in changing his destiny and saving his father. There is also a moment in Across the Spider-Verse that serves as a direct parallel to The Empire Strikes Back. In a moment of despair for Luke, he sees his face underneath the mask of Darth Vader. In a moment of despair for Miles, he sees his face underneath the mask of the Prowler. Each hero seeing their face under the mask of a villain is a clear parallel that encapsulates the internal struggle each hero was going through. From the inception of each film to the moment the credits roll, both The Empire Strikes Back and Across the Spider-Verse share major similarities. Now, that's not to say these are the same movie. Spider-Verse is much more comedic and meta, while Empire is a sci-fi adventure with a much darker tone. Not to mention they're made in separate mediums. Also, one of the movies has the greatest movie villain of all time in it, while the other has Darth Vader. But just because Across the Spider-Verse isn't a beat-for-beat remake of The Empire Strikes Back, doesn't mean Across the Spider-Verse doesn't capture the essence of Empire. Both movies are the second installment in a trilogy that showcase someone honing the powers they first used in the previous film. Both movies have a major twist in the third act. Both movies have the villains win, and the heroes at their lowest point. Both movies clearly define where the trilogy is headed while leaving the audience with a major unanswered question. This is why Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is this generation's Empire Strikes Back.